welcome our distinguished, of course, they are not here, African guests, but from East Africa, Tanzania, Uganda, Dr. Dina Machuve and Dr. Ernest, respectively. I also extend the warmest greetings to and gratitude to you for them for joining this year's INDABA 2022 prestigious occasion. We have gathered here today to create a platform for learning through exchange of ideas, collaboration, innovation, and knowledge sharing in the fields of artificial intelligence and machine learning. Deep learning INDABA is an annual gathering of machine learning, like I just mentioned. We said gathering for learners, researchers, practitioners, and students from Africa and beyond, aimed at fostering and promoting artificial intelligence and machine learning research and education at African content. The theme for this year combines application of deep learning in agriculture could not be more timely and relevant. It underscores the challenges and opportunities that we face in our rapidly changing world. IndabaX 2023 is about fostering connections, learning from each other, and building a community that drives positive change. This event brings together some bright minds and passionate individuals dedicated to making a difference in their respective fields. Distinguished participants, as we embark on this journey together, it is important to note that IndabaX 2023 is not just the next 3 days engagement, discussions, and practical hands-on sessions, but also about forging new connections with potential to shape the future of our field and the lasting impact it can create. Together, we have the power to explore new frontiers, challenge existing paradigms, and find smart solutions for the most pressing challenges of our time. I encourage each and every one of you to take this opportunity to its fullest. Actively participate. Ask thought-provoking questions, share your ideas, and embrace diverse perspectives. To our esteemed presenters that we are expecting today, this year's event is built around your expertise in the topic under review. The participants are eagerly await your presentations and confident that your insights will inspire and broaden their knowledge and perspectives. I also want to give a special thanks to the organizers and the sponsors and all those who have worked tirelessly to make this event possible. Without your dedication and support, IndabaX 2023 would not have been possible. While I once again welcome all of you to IndabaX 2023, I wish you a memorable and resounding success. I welcome you all and thank you for your kind attention.
Hello, thank you very much, Dr. Hydera, and we're happy that you're hosting us and you're making this possible for us to impact younger generations in this interesting area. So we would go as planned. As you can see on the schedule, the next we would have Dina. Dina, can you share your slides now? So yeah, Dina was a professor at the University, Nelson Mandela University of Science and Technology, in the Computer Science Department, until recently when she co-founded DevData. Now she is working on very interesting applications of deep learning in agriculture, especially in poultry diseases, and she's going to talk to us about this. Okay, go ahead, Dina. Thank you.
Yeah, good morning. I thank you so much for inviting me to the INDABAX in Gambia. I'm really humbled, and I look forward to sharing with you the experience I have over the past few years in application of deep learning in agriculture. And we understand that agriculture means crop farming as well as livestock. And the specific work that I've worked on in applying deep learning in agriculture is to try to identify early the diseases in poultry. And as my host Bubakar has introduced me, that I was an academic staff and researcher at the Nelson Mandela African Institution of Science and Technology in Tanzania until 1.5 years ago, when I have co-founded Dev Data Analytics, which is a startup, a data science startup addressing real-world problems in agriculture and health. But currently, I lead the work on agriculture applications. And I also volunteer my time at Data Science Africa, which is a non-profit organization for building capacity at university students in data science. And we normally organize annual summer school and workshops at different universities in Africa. And our last event was in Kigali at University of Rwanda this year in last May. So that is in a nutshell what I do, and this is the agenda that we'll have today about the ongoing work I'm doing on diagnostics of developing data-driven solutions for poultry diseases diagnostics. So this is the agenda that we'll have an overview of today, and I will take you through briefly the work that we currently have managed to do. So really, I've done this work in Tanzania, but really the situation is quite similar in different countries in Africa. So Tanzania ranks third in Africa in terms of livestock numbers. We have a very high numbers of livestock, and we rank third. In terms of chickens in particular, we have about 36 million, and we have over 4.6 million households that keep chicken. So they rely on chicken for their revenue, as well as they support the food and nutritional sources at these homes. However, the productivity is low. We have very high livestock numbers, but you don't hear the country being leading in export or import of chickens in the continent. And really, that's where diseases is really a major contributing factor in poultry, addressing poultry health. And this is really the motivation of this work that we are currently doing. And we really see it will address the second SDG goal of zero hunger. If we are able to improve the productivity of chickens, few chickens die from diseases. So the farmers will have high productivity, and therefore we will definitely contribute to zero hunger and also reduce poverty among the farmers, because these diseases cause farmers to lose almost all of their flock, or at times even more than 50% of the flock is normally lost due to diseases. So currently, the way these chicken diseases are monitored currently, and these are the three main diseases that really are causing a lot of death and lowering the productivity among poultry farmers. We have Salmonella, Newcastle disease, and coccidiosis. So basically, you take chicken droppings These, they are normally diagnosed at the lab, and normally takes 3 to 4 days to get these results, the lab results for the diseases. And farmers who are in the rural areas have challenges to access these services because of the distance, and also they're not free. You have to pay, so it is expensive. We have what we call agriculture extension officers who are at the field. However, there are very few. You have one extension officer serving 1,500 farmers. So there are very few extension officers. So and even if they are there, they don't have tools to diagnose these diseases at farm level. So that was really the motivation for this problem. And now coming to a position as a data scientist, what kind of data set are you going to use to diagnose these diseases? And we understood that normally to diagnose Salmonella, Newcastle disease, and coccidiosis, you normally use the chicken droppings. So we said, can we take the images of these chicken droppings and be able to say whether it is healthy, or whether it has Salmonella, or it has Newcastle disease, or if it has coccidiosis? And that's when we say image data really is more suitable in this case. And we said, okay, if we have the images now, how can we deploy the solution? And the answer came as smartphones will be the best solution, because we have very high numbers of mobile subscriptions. We have about 49 million people with mobile phones in Tanzania. And if you look in Africa, we have over 444 million people in Africa with mobile phones, out of which we have over 50% with smartphones. So we really say, okay, if we develop a solution to diagnose these diseases, a mobile phone will be a suitable sensor, specifically a smartphone. And also, another motivation for using the image dataset is because we have very low literacy levels among farmers. They're semi-literate. So, and also we have multiple languages. We have people with different tribes. So we really see that images form a universal data set. And definitely we understand socially people are really obsessed with images. So that was really the motivation that led us to develop this project that has 3 objectives. We have to generate the data set. The data set was not there. We said, okay, do we have a data set already in place with images of chicken droppings, so that we can just start doing the modeling, the machine learning, okay, and then we can do the data set curation. How are you going to annotate the data set? And then the diagnostics means now doing the modeling now, the machine learning. So doing this work is like we were able to establish our goal was to establish an annotated data set, and then develop a deep learning model to detect these 3 diseases. So we really had to do a proof of concept that can be that this is possible. We understand we have out of the box data sets, the cat and the dogs data set that normally people use in teaching machine learning. Those are already curated data sets, but really our interest is to solve a real life problem on the ground for farmers, and that is where we really see that we didn't have the data set. And so this was our workflow. In the first stage, step 1 was to generate the data set. And in our case is really the fecal images, the chicken droppings images. And we were able to that is our first step, to generate the data set. And the second step is to annotate, label properly. You have collected images. Is this a healthy chicken? Does it represent a healthy, or does it present a diseased chicken? So you should be able to annotate it properly so that we maintain this data set. And the second part, the third stage, is now to do the diagnostics, to do the deep learning work, develop the different models of deep learning to detect the poultry diseases. So when we embarked now on the first objective to develop this data set, remember it was not there for poultry diseases diagnostics. So we went to the field and we used a mobile app or using Open Data Kit, where we were taking pictures of the chicken droppings and be able to label it, whether it's healthy, whether it has coccidiosis, Newcastle, salmonella. So it is not only the ICT people on the field. We worked with extension officers, with veterinary officers, because we labeled the data. We labeled the data on the field with their assistance, and also we were able to. ICT people, we set up this this app for collecting the data, and we were able to have the data set sent on Google Sheets. And this is how we did the work on the field. You see the enumerator we collected the data at different farms. We got permission. We had to apply for ethical clearance. You just don't go to these farms to collect data without getting the ethical clearance from the veterinary authority. So this is how the data collection was done at the chicken farm, and they do the labeling. So these are the enumerators, and you see they are wearing proper gears at the farms to make sure we keep the animals safe as well. We don't bring any diseases to the farm. And this is how we did the data collection. There was, for salmonella, we were also tracking whether there was an outbreak of that disease. When we didn't get the outbreak, we applied again with ethical clearance, and we had the vet officers inoculating, injecting the disease to the chickens so that we are able to monitor the chicken droppings for that disease. That was for salmonella. But for the other diseases, we were able to get the images from the different farms. And as we go on here, we collected samples. We collected images and a few samples to do the laboratory test. Remember, we said currently you monitor this disease as well using laboratory tests. So we did a procedure called polymerase chain reaction, which was done by a molecular biologist for the samples we had collected as well, in order to have a very high quality data set of actual labeling. And this is how the PCR is done. We are able to label the different samples by numbers, and the way that the more bright it is, the more confident we are. It confirms whether it has a certain disease or not. And if here you see these blank patches on some of these numbers, it means it was not able to detect whether there is those labels are there or not. So it tests positive if you see a very bright light, and if tests negative if you see it dark. So we ended up getting 1,255 images labeled using the laboratory experiment. So that was our high quality data set done using polymerase chain reaction. Reagents are very expensive. So you can see here for the laboratory labeled images, we were only able to label 1,255. And then at farm level, the farm labeled images, we got this advice from the we worked with agriculture experts and veterinary officers. They're the ones who were confirming these labels as we were collecting the images. So these were about 812 images. You see, they are more than the high quality label. As I said, we wish we could have the same number done as well in the laboratory level, but the reagents are very expensive and it is a very costly process because of the reagents. And this is how the images look. For healthy, this is an image of a healthy chicken dropping, and this is infected with coccidiosis, and this is the salmonella. So you see the color and texture of the color as well, and as well as the texture of the fecal images is what allowed us to be able to do the labeling. So we have all this data set. It took almost a year and a half to reach these numbers, to complete the first objective of data collection. So it's really a tedious process. So we really, as data scientists, we really have to appreciate people who really curate these data sets that really address real life problems. All this data set is available online. It is shared on open access. So we really to encourage you to, it's really a motivation to encourage more researchers to access this data set and also be able to develop tools that will will address these challenges of poultry farmers. So after we collected the images for salmonella, we had to make sure these the chickens are properly disposed. These were diseased chickens, and all the eggs were destroyed because the disease is zoonotic. It's called salmonella for the chickens, but it brings typhoid to human beings. That's why we had to make sure all the eggs are destroyed, not sold, once the disease is diagnosed. So we made sure that they're properly disposed so that the disease doesn't spread to other farms, and also the eggs do not reach human beings since it can cause typhoid. So we had the data set, over 8,000 images, and properly curated. So the annotation, as I said, we had 1,255 images labeled using the lab procedures. And also we had the 6,800 labeled using the help of agricultural experts who were at the field with the team to collect this data. And now, this is how we did the annotation. We looked into the color and the shape of the fecal images, which are really the features. We didn't collect clinical signs, although the clinical signs that the chickens showed really confirmed to the agricultural experts about what disease it had. We only collected the fecal images. So after we have now the data set, we have it properly curated and uploaded on the cloud. We were able to set up now. That's when, after all that hard work of 1.5 years, that's when we can really start now running the deep learning models. And the task we have so far done is image classification. We run the deep learning models for the image classification task to classify whether it's healthy or not healthy. And if it's not healthy, what of the 3 diseases that the chicken might have. So we did the pre-processing of the data set using Keras, okay? Using Keras, and using the image data generator class on Keras. And then we trained the model we mixed now the farm labeled and the farm labeled and the laboratory labeled fecal images, okay, on training, okay, and on the test set we only used the farm labeled images, because on the test set, it really reflects what the farmer will have at the farm. Only the farm label data set is what the farmer will have at the farm. So we use, for test set, only the farm labeled data set is what we used. So diagnostics is now the modeling work that we did. So we worked, we had a baseline model, which is a normal convolutional neural network consisting of convolutional layers, max pooling, and dropout, and ReLU. These are the different convolutional blocks, okay? So that was our baseline model. And then we did transfer learning. We did experiment on transfer learning because our data set was small, so we didn't train the models from scratch. So we did transfer learning, which means freezing all the layers in the base model and then create a top layer with the 4 poultry classes: healthy, coccidiosis, salmonella, and Newcastle, and top as the output of the several layers from the frozen baseline layer. So the transfer learning architectures that we used were VGG16, Inception v3, MobileNet v2, and the exception. So we ran the experiments on the cloud. We used the Google. We ran these experiments on the cloud, and these were the results. Here we had different metrics. Accuracy was one of them. We had the F1 score, precision, and recall. But here I've only shared the accuracy and the F1 score. And the experimental setup here was the baseline had 83.06%. The accuracy without fine-tuning. That means the normal transfer learning of the pre-trained. This was the first set of experiment. Okay, we had the baseline CNN as well as the transfer learning, where we had the highest accuracy on Inception v3 on the transfer learning, which had 94.79%. And then we did another set of experiment, which we call fine-tuning. Fine-tuning means we're unfreezing some of the layers on the, at certain stages, and then we retrain the data set at a very low learning rate, so as to improve the accuracy, these model performance, which was from the first experiment, which was on transfer learning. So that is what we call fine-tuning, and we really see it improved. It improved. We reached even an accuracy of 97% on MobileNet and exception. And then we further did another third set of experiment, where we froze the batch normalization layer. We have this batch normalization layer on the baseline model. So we freeze those layers, and the goal of this set of experiment is to improve the performance of the fine-tuned experiment, of the fine-tuned models. So we are trying to further improve the accuracy, the metrics, the model performance. And we see there's a slight improvement up to 98% with the frozen batch normalization layer. And then we picked up, okay, let's go on with this, the third part on the frozen batch normalization layer, and it is fine-tuned. And these are the corresponding F1 score of these experiments. So you can definitely be able now, you have run the experiments, you are able to get these accuracies, and you have 4 model architectures. So you have to make a decision, like which one will I go, which model do I deploy now? And you can see here we have exception with an accuracy of 98.24%, and we have MobileNet v2 with 98.02. If you check the F1 score for the different classes of Coxy, healthy, Newcastle disease, they're equally around the same. So we are at a point that we have to make a decision. Do we do deployment with MobileNet v2 or exception? So we have to make a decision. Okay, so so we did the fine tuning, as I said, for the transfer learning models to improve accuracy, and now you have to make a decision about which model do you deploy. So you have those figures which I presented earlier. You have the accuracy, you have the F1 score, you have the precision, and you have the recall. Okay, but you further need to check what the the loss curves show. You also have to go through what the loss curves show. So we said we have to make a decision between MobileNet V2 and exception, and we consider this is without fine tuning for both, and this is with fine tuning. So when you look at here, we said we see about at 10 epochs, you on the validation curve, you are able to obtain between 75 to 85% of the accuracy. And this is similar for MobileNet V2 and exception. But when you look at the loss curves, okay, we see here when it gets to around 20 to 30 epochs, it kind of stabilizes. But if you check on the exception here, when it reaches around the 20 to 30 epochs, it kind of overshoots. So it becomes unstable, meaning maybe there must be some kind of overfitting. This one stabilizes of MobileNet V2, the loss curve, but here this one becomes a bit unstable, suggesting that they might be overfitting. So you don't only make the decision on which model to choose based only on those numbers of the metrics, performance metrics. You equally have to look at the loss curves as well. And furthermore, when we did for now the model selection, we further looked onto the model size. The MobileNet V2 model was about 10 times smaller. That model was 26 megabytes, while exception is 10 times, about 238 megabytes. And also we look onto the parameters. The trainable parameters on MobileNet was about 2 million, while on exception is about 10 times, about 20 million parameters. And remember, we want to deploy our model on smartphones. So the smaller, the better. So we really ended up concluding that the most suitable model for deployment on smartphones will be the MobileNet V2 model being more suitable. Okay, so that would be. So the work is ongoing. We are really eager to have the model deployed on mobile phone, on smartphones, and see how farmers react, how farmers use them at their farms. However, we have these open questions which I really like us to. That's really what I really want you to have as a takeaway. Besides the appreciation of how we were able to apply deep learning, but we really are. We say the data set is open. It's available there for download on Zenodo. But what new knowledge will be generated from this data set? And also, we said we didn't consider clinical signs. Maybe the chickens were not eating well, or they were not eating well, or maybe they were not active. So those clinical signs were not considered. And some of these climate data, because at times when the changes of weather occur, that's when you have these high prevalences of these disease outbreaks. So it would be very exciting if we can integrate these clinical signs and climate data to these to the work that we've done to make the model more robust. And also, what mechanisms do we put in place to update this model with new data? Because we really want it to be updated. You don't want the data set to be only the old one. So what mechanism do we put in place? Do we crowdsource new image data? And how do we incentivize farmers to use these smartphones, to use this application once it's out there? And we have farmers that don't have smartphones. How do we reach these farmers that don't have smartphones? We don't, because all are farmers, and we're really addressing the challenges of these farmers. So what solution will be more viable to reach farmers that don't have smartphones. Yeah, so the results of this initial work, the one on image classification, is published on the paper here and is available on this link on this DOI. You can read more details. Even the links to the data set can definitely be accessed. So I really thank you so much for having me at IndabaX Gambia, and I really thank you very much, and really look forward to having more researchers from Gambia solving real-world problems using deep learning and the skills that you're going to learn from IndabaX and take it to the next level. Thank you so much.
Questions? I'll go first and see. Okay, somebody sent me a question. Okay, but my question is, what are the biggest challenges you had in gathering the data? You know, having to convince the farmers to allow you to take the droppings, images of the droppings.
So,
Generally,
yeah,
working with, you let us know what are the issues you had to handle.
yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah. So once we were ready to go to the field to get the different farms, it wasn't like that we have the mobile app ready, we're just going to the farms. We had to wait for the ethical clearance. It took 3 months to get the ethical clearance because you can't visit any farm. And then you go to the district, the particular district, with the livestock officer. You are not allowed to go to the farms without a livestock or agriculture expert. So we had to get about 3 agriculture experts, sit with them, train them how to use the app, communicate about the goal of the project. It was not easy because people thought that we already have the app ready and they can start diagnosing the diseases at their farms. So we had to really explain that we need to have that data and be able to do the modeling and then come back to them. And until now, we haven't gone back. It really is a procedural work. So, and when we go to the farms, it wasn't the data scientist doing the talking. It had to be the agricultural expert who has already been at these farms supporting the farmers. So it was a very long process and quite frustrating. And when we get there, you could see that the farmers were hesitant. Who are the other people with you? So we were allowed to have only the farmers, only the livestock officers and the agriculture experts actually doing the data collection in other areas. So when we went like for the 2nd or 3rd time, that's when the farmers were comfortable and really allowed us in. So we had to observe all the safety procedures and stuff. And the farmers were very sensitive when their chickens were sick, because it's quite a depressing situation. So we had to get the agriculture expert, give them expert advice on what they can do before we were actually allowed to gather the images. So that's why I said it took quite a long time, over 1.5 years, to get all the data. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much, Dina. I have a question here from one of the participants. His VOC said, what problems in agriculture can be solved by machine learning?
Yeah, that's a very interesting. Question, and actually, you normally begin with the community. You don't have the challenges already on the box, and so your target community really determines, and it takes working with interdisciplinary. I worked a lot with the biologist, the vet, the extension officers for quite some time to really understand what they do and what the challenges are. So normally the challenges on the ground are the ones which spark a data scientist on what can be done. So it really takes interdisciplinary work, but there are quite a lot of problems that can be done on livestock, because agriculture is livestock and crop farming. You can diagnose diseases on crops, you can diagnose diseases on livestock. You can also use data science to determine the yield, to monitor even the farm. Do you have productivity? What are the figures? What are the weather? And try to integrate as a data scientist and be able to really have a smart-driven farm. So those are some of these challenges, but you really have to work on a multidisciplinary team to be able to understand the challenges which are on the ground. You can't work in isolation as a data scientist to solve these problems. Yeah, you're muted. Yeah. I think you're muted, Bubakar. Can you unmute so that I can hear the question?
Okay, I just want to know how quality are the image data, and then why do you prefer imagery? And then the second question is, what are the indicators you use to collect the data using the OD gate? Is it clear?
Yeah. It was quite, the voice was quite low. If you can just repeat. Yeah. Yeah.
So, if I'm wrong, you rectify me. He is asking what were the quality of the images that you took. I guess that's the resolution. What was the Why did you prefer image data over other types of data? Okay, what indicators did you use in the data collection?
Very good question. Yeah, those are very good questions. Thank you. We used, as I said, we have done the image classification task, where we just considered the images, and the deep learning did its work of extracting the pictures, and we did only the image classification task. We are really trying to do the image segmentation, where we are going actually to label at pixel level around the images, to be able to get to see how the results compare. And quality, in terms of quality, we considered that normal basic phone that a farmer will use. So we didn't use very high resolution images, because a normal smartphone, that is really the quality of a normal smartphone that the farmer will have at the farm. That's why we didn't use a very high resolution image. We captured the images using a normal smartphone that we really see that is what the farmer will use at the farm. If we use the very high resolution images, then the performance will be very poor if farmers use normal smartphones, use a model, because if we use very high resolution images, very high resolution cameras, and created the model using that, then the model will be very accurate. And then when farmers use their normal phones at farm level to detect the diseases, then it won't reflect the reality. It might be failing or giving wrong diagnosis. Yeah. And the features we use, as I said, we normally use the color. The colors are different for the color and the texture. When the chicken is diseased, you see the chicken dropping is not very solid. It's a bit loose. So we use the color and also the texture of the fecal of the chicken dropping to extract the features for classification of the different classes for the disease. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Right. Okay, it's all right. Let me just repeat the question once. The question is, how difficult was it for you to secure ethics approval during the course of your data collection, poultry data collection at the time it was? How difficult was it for you to get the ethics approval for the clearance? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. 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 Thank you for the question. Thank you very much for that question. It took, I applied for the ethical clearance on time, and it took about 3 months to get it. 3 months. And then after really serious follow-ups, it took us 3 months. And after getting it for 3 months, it was valid for 1 year. So we had to schedule all our field work to make sure we finish everything within 1 year. So it was quite a challenge. And we had to submit a lot of documents for the ethical clearance. That we had to have a vet, extension officers on the team, so we had to get their credentials as well, and as well as the project team. But we got it in 3 months, and we had to really make sure the schedule we had promised to be done in 1 year. But it also takes good work relationships. You really have to have good work relationships with people at district level, and also the authorities, to make sure everything is safe and executed on time. So we had about 2 teams on the ground in 2 regions. So they had to operate simultaneously so that we are able to meet the deadlines. And the challenges we had also on the ground also included you mobilize the team to collect the data, and we also have to have data scientists to monitor that the right data is coming in. So you also had to have an agriculture expert to make sure everything data comes in correctly, and you communicate how many images. So you had to also monitor all the enumerators. And also we had, while working in the field, we also have some of these livestock officers monitoring what you're doing, that it is safe and you are adhering to that. So that it was quite challenging. And the most challenging with the ethical clearance is really, it is valid for 1 year. It means after 1 year, you can't go back to the field to collect more data. So we really had to adhere to that, and we had to have very good work relationship to make sure everything is smooth. Yeah, thank you.
Question, and then we'll thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dina, for that wonderful presentation. My question is actually related to what we have just stated right now. That is regarding the financial challenges. I just want to particularly know how challenging it was to get the involvement of the extension officers. Usually, especially in Africa, people usually are so much interested in anything that they are doing. They are interested with the monetary return. So I don't know how difficult was it to get the involvement of the extension officers in your research. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you for the very good question. As I said, I was referred at times, because our university has the School of Life Sciences. So I was also working with lecturers in the life sciences. Okay. So from their previous projects, they were able to recommend suitable teams, suitable officers to work with. So that helped a lot. My fellow academic staff and researchers gave recommendation. And also when I got the reference to go to the district veterinary officer, okay, it I took time. It takes time to, you really, as a data scientist, you really need to have time and patience to communicate what you are trying to do, because technology is not always positively received with people in other professions. And we had to really communicate that we are bringing in, we are trying to make efforts to bring tools that will make your work better and easier and more efficient. So you really need to set aside time for education, to really have this conversation before you actually just start with the data collection. And also to remove this perception that it's all about money, because that means the issue of research will not be there. That you really have to be very careful not to communicate that you are paying farmers to give you the data. No, we only compensated the time for extension officers. We had to communicate to the farmers that this is voluntary for you to allow. So we had even the farmers to sign a consent form. At every farm we went, they had to sign a consent form that they are willingly allowing people to take the images at their farms, because it is for compensate for it is going to add value to develop these tools that will eventually reach them. So we only compensated the time for the extension officers, and we were very, very careful not to say we are putting money ahead. That really miscommunicates the concept of research. And we also had to apply for a grant to get funding to be able to do this field work, and also computing power. Yeah, yeah. So really, this has to come very much at the beginning of the project. Build the right message that it is research, and the goals is really to have a tool, and this is an experimental. We really hope further we will be able to deploy and reach these farmers eventually. Yeah, thank you.
Dina, I think a lot more questions. Some people sent me a question on Slack to ask you, but I think we have taken a lot of your time now, and you've responded adequately to a lot of these questions.
Thank you.
Let you go. The only request we would want is, could you share your slides so that we can share it with the participants? Some of the participants will want to really be able to go through the slides one more time. Yeah.
Definitely, I will do that. Thank you so much for having me. Really appreciate it. Thank you. I will send the slides. Thank you. Bye.
Okay.
And all the best.
Let's thank Dina one more time, everybody. Bye.